then there's a conversation you can join. But I'm an old dog and there's new tricks, and some of my opinions you just can't fix. 'Cause I'm an old man yelling at the sky. I'ma shake my fist at the clouds and cry. Get off my lawn, you snowflake, before I have a meltdown, breakdown, shakedown. 'Cause this is my hometown, so back down, sports clown. It's all just a game, and it's the last down, let down, cowtown. I said it's all just a game. I give the touchdown, the rundown, the lowdown. 'Cause it's over the game, gonna crack down, shut down, it's sundown. I said it's all just a game.
Happy Monday to you. Here I am. Here you are. I am me, you are you. Welcome to Just a Game. It is the pre-long weekend version of such, which is great time for me to let you know we will not be doing a show next Monday. Decided out of the goodness of my heart, I'm going to let the staff have a long weekend. It's just how I roll. It's just how I roll. Benevolent leader, I believe is the term. Benevolent. That's what we are. Before we get going, and we've got a crisis in this country we need to address. We're broadcasting live from Treaty 7 territory. Everyone is welcome. This is an inclusive and safe podcast. We have a crisis in this country right now. My God, now what do we do? The Toronto Maple Leafs are gone and the Edmonton Oilers are gone. We must somehow form a circle and protect the children from what is coming, because clearly we cannot be fans of just one team. We have to have that jingoistic, I believe is the term, all for one, one for all attitude. Nobody since 93. Listen, 2 weeks ago, some donkey who had a podcast on this very nation with a similar name said, hey, Toronto, Edmonton, first time since 89, I can see it. Well, that didn't happen. Both teams losing in 6. So you're welcome, whoever, took that and ran with it. Edmonton losing last night 5-2 to Vegas. Tonight, Dallas and Seattle. It is completely possible that the two most recent expansion teams will meet in the Western Conference Final, which on its surface doesn't really feel that. I think this is the 4th time in 6 years that Vegas has gone to a conference final. Seattle, 2 years in the league, could go to a conference final. It just seemed like back in 2003 when the Minnesota Wild went on that incredible run and ended up, by incredible run, I mean they hooked and held everybody and played the most boring brand of hockey since, God was a cowboy. Having said that, expansion teams, Florida, every once in a while pop in there, but this is completely different. Having said that, there's no joy in Mudville today up in Edmonton. They are wondering how come they failed. Toronto, early word appears that there may not be significant changes coming, but the villagers are restless and have pitchforks and torches out. So we might get into that. But you know what? I'm going to take advantage of the fact that we already, by the way, Ryan Pike later on, but already got a great guest in studio. Co-host. Let's go with co-host. Brought to you by Ski Cellar Snowboard, skicellarsnowboard.com. 76 years in Calgary, 3 locations, McLeod Trail by Chinook Center, 17th Avenue Southwest, just off of 14th Street, Beauridge Road Northwest, by McDonald's at the bottom of the hill by Winsport. You know him, you love him, 89 Stanley Cup champion, one of the all-time greats, 3rd or 4th or 5th time on this program already, and we've only been around 6 weeks. Colin Patterson from the Flames Alumni joins us. Patter, how are you?
Excellent, Rob.
Why aren't you doing something? Why aren't you volunteering as we speak? Shouldn't you be out saving cats or putting out burning buildings? Like, what was your weekend? Like, you were supposed to be here. Not supposed to be. I asked if you could come on Friday. You could not. What were you doing Friday?
Friday, we had the Breaking Free Foundation, the 3rd annual Fired Up for Mental Health wood sale.
Okay.
And that was at Bracco
Yep.
Furniture. So Smoking Good Wood, Len at Smoking Good Wood sells bundles of wood for $10, and the Breaking Free Foundation, which helps people deal with trauma, gets $5 of that. So we're doing that on Friday. Thursday night we had an event too for Breaking Free down at the Trop. It was great. Theo was there, Lanny was there, and then Saturday we were back at it with the wood sale. And sure enough, Tim Hunter and Dana Merzen show up. So, our alumni is so good. There's so many events going on right now, and the guys are just very generous with their time.
Well, there are. We should also point out, speaking of very generous, the Flames Foundation with a significant contribution to the community, $400,000 in pump tracks, and that saw the alumni out. I saw Reggie was out and some other players. Tim Hunter, I think, was part of that too.
And Dana was part of that.
Dana
too
was
as
at,
well. We had our Pump It Up guys.
Have you been to a pump track yet?
No, you know what? I haven't. Probably with the new knee, probably should stay away from the pump track for life.
Yeah, but I think you should go watch it.
Oh, I think it would be great to watch. Yeah.
I was shocked. I heard about them, and as an advocate, as we both are, about having, recreational facilities for kids in our community, I thought, well, yeah, sure, okay, this is cool. And then I went and saw it. Holy crap. Those things are incredible, and they're busy, and they are busy, right? Like, it's awesome.
And that's the great part of it, right? Dana and Tim were just talking about it, how, they had the one girl come out and do a little exhibition, and she went around the top and then down and up and down and up and never pedaled.
Yeah,
which was crazy. Yeah,
it's insane. But you have to kind of follow the lines. Like, you can't go the wrong way. Like, it's the wrong place to go against the grain.
Which has been my style.
Yes, yes. Get out there and pedal the wrong way. We are 10 days away from the Masters golf tournament?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, you confirmed that.
The days too.
Yeah. And that's obviously a significant moment on the calendar for the alumni.
Absolutely. Big moment. It's our Masters golf tournament, and we raise money for CP kids and families for their adapted bike program. And it's a fantastic program we've talked about before. And it's just it's a special time for our alumni. It's our longest running event. I think we're at 26 years now.
Wow. Yeah. And are we expecting a good alumni turnout?
Always. Yeah, we always do. And the team rallies, and if whatever guys are asked to come play, they come and play, and they support it.
Yeah. We should also point out, because you won't and I will, that a week ago yesterday, the alumni hosted and paid for a superheroes banquet for the first time. So we were able to bring all the kids together from the 3 superheroes teams, which the alumni have adopted.
Yeah, and it was, you were there.
Yeah.
Both were there, and it was a very special day to see the kids in an environment like that, which they've never been part of. Part of a banquet, part of the awards, and part of speeches. And I was really impressed with, we had at the rooftop.
Yep.
And, I thought, the kids are running around, what's going to happen? And then I thought about it for a bit, and I go, boy, that place was designed for stampede parties. I go, this will be nothing for them. But the kids were great. They had a great time, very well-behaved, especially when their peers were up on stage talking.
Yeah.
And I was really impressed with the speeches that the kids did, and it was just a fun atmosphere. It was a great way to wrap up the season.
Well, they continue to show us the way, don't they? In so many, we're the ones that put parameters on them, and we go, well, can they or will they? And this was just another example. To your point, like, the speeches were absolutely incredible, right? And the other kids took it all in. It was a great family event. The nice thing about the superheroes is now we're transitioning them into giving back to the community. So they were with me on Saturday at Pet Value in Deer Run, and we were collecting donations of pet food and things for parachutes for pets. And now the kids are like you guys did, right? Yeah. Like, Special Olympics is coming up on their golf tournament. You guys were early adapters. Not the alumni, the Flames were early adapters of Special Olympics here in Calgary. That's what hockey teams do, and they're now beginning to have that identity too, which they're getting the whole experience.
Yeah, which is great. And, and the camaraderie that they have formed, amongst the kids and the parents. And, it's like, people ask, what's it like? I go, it's like any hockey team I've ever played with or coached or, you get serious kids, you get funny kids, you get, kids who want to work hard, kids who just go, you know what, it's great. Kids who love the sport, kids who are just enjoying it. And that's the beauty of it. It is like any other team that you've ever been on. And you know what? The kids find friends within there.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump in. Edmonton eliminated last night. Toronto eliminated on Friday. Are you all right? You okay? Or I mean, are you having withdrawal? Is this somehow cataclysmic for you?
Well, surprisingly, I had a birthday on May 11th, and part of my birthday wish was that both those teams would lose out, and surprisingly, they did. It was great. I enjoy watching Toronto, in the playoffs especially, and because you just get jammed down your throat with every radio station, TV station, everything's Toronto.
But
Toronto,
you're an
Toronto.
Ontario kid.
Yeah, but I go, there's only so much you can take, and the beauty of it is they're out, but they won't make any changes. They'll talk a big game, but that's part of the process is now we got to the second round. Well, it's taking you 9 years in this plan to get there. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now you're going to get to the second round, and to me, I go, they lack the grit that you need to win, and. You know what? The guys who have the grit were sitting up in the press box. I go, why wouldn't you put Wayne Simmons in? Tell me that, and then maybe you've got an answer for me. But I can't, I look at, the guys with grit on that team, and they're very, that you need to sort of extend and play in the playoffs, and that's what they're missing.
But they had that against Tampa, right? Because that's Tampa's thing. Tampa will out-grit you, and they took a victory lap after that 6-game series and said, see, look what we did, right?
And that's Toronto, right? They were planning the parade. Everything was great. They were going to win the cup. And, but you look at they were lucky to get out of the Tampa series. Tampa made some, miscues at times when they were up. And, and that changes the dynamics and the momentum. But, I was sort of pleased that they did lose.
I didn't have a horse in the race. If they go. But to me, it was always going to be, well, if they go, then I can watch Gio and TJ Brody because I like those guys, right?
That part was
there's
sad
that connection.
Part.
Yeah, there's that connection. And then last night, it was the Oilers who really shocked the hell out of me. I thought they were going to come back on home ice, and the way that game started, I just thought, okay, last team with the puck's going to win. They couldn't outscore them, and Aiden Hill. I don't know, man. And we can get into this. Aiden Hill makes whatever it was, like 38 saves on 40 shots. We've everybody that comes on said, well, you can't win in this league without a goalie. You can't win in the league. What's he, number 4 there? Like, is he number 4 on the depth chart?
But you can't win without a hot goalie, right?
That's a good way of putting it.
And no matter who it is, and when you think back of Vegas's first year, they must have gone through 5 goaltenders.
Yep.
But every one of those goaltenders went on a run.
Yeah.
Because one guy would play great, and then he'd get injured, and then they'd go, we got to get this other guy. And I think they did go through 5 goalies, and every one of them played spectacular. And then obviously Fleury, who has, so much, experience, and, he just brings calmness to a team. He takes them all the way to the finals.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what a hot goalie can do. And, there aren't too many teams that win that don't have a hot goalie.
Right.
You might not have the best goalie in the league, but he's the hottest at that time. And when you look at it, you go, boy, Seattle, I go, Grubauer, was he hot in the first round, and he was hot in the second? He's hot and cold a bit now in the second. But, if you can catch him on that right game, which, they're hoping for tonight, that sort of says it. Ottinger, he's a great goalie. And, he's had a few tough games, but you know what? You get him hot, and that's going to be it. Bobrovsky, who's been, probably the best goalie in the East.
But didn't start.
Yeah.
And then found the net again, right?
Yeah.
It is absolutely crazy.
And it's neat to see those stories, too. I like those.
I do, too. I just don't think we take that into consideration enough, that, we get too locked in and you must have this and you must have that. Same thing with defensemen, right? You got to have this type of defenseman. You got to have that type of defenseman. You got to have defensemen that are gamers.
Yeah. Gamers and have grit. And every guy, that's what you need.
Yeah.
That's what drives your whole playoffs is, the gamers, the guys with grit, the guys that, and you need the unexpected scorers.
Right.
It can't be the same guys every time. When you sit there and you watch Edmonton, and I go, they got the 2 best players in the world. And, you're watching their power play, you go, well, they're doing the same thing every time, on how they get into the zone. maybe you should think about, if you're the penalty killer, well, boy, why don't I just follow McDavid to start with, and then I'll go right at Draisaitl, But obviously their power play was spectacular. I mean, they were 47%.
Record-breaking.
Yeah, it was crazy. And, and I mean, there was probably a couple plays last night, and I'm anything,
Yep. AB.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a high stick near the end, and it wasn't an intentional one, but he did catch Ekholm with a high stick, and the guy blood's pouring out, and they don't call that, but you tap somebody on the stick, and and it breaks, or a piece of tape falls off, and you've got a 2-minute penalty. That part, you sort of struggle with, and I struggle with, what's a penalty now and what isn't, and then the goals that are called back and how long it takes, and yeah.
Well, and there's lots of ways of this onion to be peeled. Let me take you back to the first thing that jumped out at me. It was seconds. It was seconds that game was over. Here's why the Oilers season was a failure. Failure. When you were playing in the 80s in the height of the Battle of Alberta, it was often said that your team was designed to beat them. Yeah. It was really you were chasing them to beat them. If you lost to the Oilers in the playoffs, was it a failure? Or did you lose to the team you were? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean sometimes you look at it, and every time we lost, in the playoffs, I always looked at it as a failure because you always wanted to win.
Yeah.
As you go back over the years and you look, you go, yeah, there were probably years we should have beat them and we didn't. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is a failure. But you learn from your failures. It's not necessarily hey, it's all bad. No, you got to look at the good things that you've done, and boy, how do we get to the next level? Back in those days, in our days, where if we want to get out of our division, you had to beat Winnipeg and the Oilers.
Yep.
And if you focus too much on the Oilers, Winnipeg would beat you. So you sort of had to play that. But the whole end goal was you got to compete against the Oilers to get out. They were the best team in the league, and
Oh, I'm not suggesting for a second that anybody should whistle a happy tune and say, okay, we'll get them next year.
No.
But
that's
this conversation sometimes doesn't allow for what has Vegas done here?
Yeah. I mean, and there's growth on both sides, right? I thought Vegas is coming together at the right time.
Yeah.
Like during the year, they had lots of injuries, but those things are starting to piece together.
Yeah.
I think Mark Stone is a big part of that team, obviously, not only as a player but a leader. And if you look at the first round when he first came back, I mean, it's tough to come back, and even during the regular season, if you've missed a large portion of it, let alone come back in the playoffs. And he was struggling for his wind and everything else, but you could see the team getting better and better. And when I watched the Edmonton series, I was shocked that they won. I truly was, but they started to play better as a team. That third period last night, I was going, I'll get up and go get a drink. And I go, I couldn't because there's no whistles.
Yeah.
I mean, there was, I would think there's probably like 5 or 6 whistles in that whole period.
They played it fast.
Yeah, it was fast. It was end to end. It was back and forth. And, there's lots of chances for Edmonton to score, and they didn't. And that's where, you need that production from the second and third tier guys. And, and I look at that Warren Fogle. I thought he played really well.
Mm-hmm.
And you need more guys like that to chip in. And, and some of but you look at that, you go, that's real growth for Edmonton. Like, to get where they were, I thought.
I'd run that team back.
Oh, man. And I go, Skinner, I thought, played really well.
He's a rookie.
I mean, hey, did he let 2 goals in last night that,
sure,
off the first 2 shots? But so did Hill.
Yeah.
I
agree. I look at it, and again, I have no interest in cheering for a Canadian team because they're a Canadian team. No. I have none. Like, this is my club team allegiances, my national allegiances at the Olympics or the World Hockey Championships. I don't need a Canadian. Having said that, I glad it was them and not me. That 8:00 start was something else.
Yeah, and I go, and there's another thing about Toronto. Well, Toronto loses out, so now the East isn't, Eastern Canada isn't interested in hockey anymore.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they have moved that game to, 6:00 our time?
Because you want Stephen A. Smith to talk about hockey. Yeah. You chased ESPN. You got ESPN. You told us how great it was to have ESPN. And guess what? ESPN screwed you.
Yeah.
because they made you stay on until after a blowout baseball game, which is their bigger property.
Yeah.
Right?
And so I just look at that and I go, that's another reason that I'm sort of happy Toronto's out.
I it's somebody else, and I kind of reposted it. We're all mad at the new teams and the new southern markets and all, or whatever we're mad at. And then, they hire smart guys, they get things done, and now we're mad at them for being successful. You could have this Vegas-Seattle matchup, which is right.
Yeah, I think it's great. What it shows to me is that where's the scouting for all the other teams? Like, you can tell me, oh, we didn't get a first-round pick. Well, how many first-round picks are, playing on your team now? And how many guys are free agents? What percentage are? Probably, on average, it's like 10 to 15% in the league are guys that never got drafted. And then you look at, well, how many guys are second round? How many guys are third, fourth, fifth, and above? And if you don't have first-round picks, okay. So unless you're in the top 4 or 5, you're not really guaranteed you're going to get a great player who's going to step right in.
But I'm not sure how much of that helps Seattle. Matty Benier is okay, great pick.
Matty Benier's
but they're not an old enough franchise to have second and third round picks play yet.
Yeah,
right.
But I go, it's the guys they've picked up.
Yeah,
and I mean, and everybody goes, well, no, they got preferential treatment on the expansion draft. I go, those are all guys that other teams, third or fourth line guys. It wasn't like they're leaving a superstar open. Those are all third and fourth line guys. Or, and I look at, Vegas when they did it. Well, they did a smart move. They got a real good solid core. And I think Vegas sort of, to me, got away from it and went after the shiny objects with some, big name signings. But I look at Seattle and I go, they stuck with it. They've got, do they have superstars? No, but they've got very good players who play a great team game.
Yeah.
And I mean, like Cartier. Yep. I go, where's he? How did people miss him?
Yep. Oh, no, exactly.
He was a free agent. He was never drafted.
Yep.
But
they also were smart. They got the Yan Gordys of the world.
It got guys who know how to win and, competitors. And that's what you want. Guys who are competitors and gamers.
Yeah. And then on the other side, I mean, for me, I don't know how you feel, but I watched Matthew Tkachuk this spring, and this Matthew Tkachuk could have beaten the Oilers last year.
Yeah.
If he was that guy last year, they would have won that series.
Yeah.
But and that's evolution, I suppose. Or, I mean, it's a pretty dramatic evolution, but that kid's, he's third. He was one of the 3 for the Hart, which we know McDavid's going to win, so it's the wrong year. But he is legitimately one of the top players in the league now.
He is, and he's worked hard. I watch him out there, and he works hard. I mean, Sam Bennett, another one. I go, he's found, like, they both sort of come together on that team, and they're leading that team.
Yeah. Oh, they are. They're playing on the same line, right?
And I go, if Barkov gets into a flow, because he's a great player.
He is.
And I think he's probably, they probably assigned him to do something more than just play and score. There's a bunch of checking and stuff that he's doing. But if he can get into a flow, I think that's going to be a great series.
I am really fascinated by it because I think you have a team that was written off that now has that team of destiny, whatever we're going to call it. But the Carolina Hurricanes are killers. They're just killers. Yeah. They're beatable, but they're killers. Like, they just put teams down.
Yeah.
Right.
And they have, like, when I look at the two teams, there are a lot of similarities in there. But I think, Sebastian Aho is, he's playing that next level of hockey.
He is.
Where Barkov, that's what he needs to step up to.
Yeah.
If he can do that, it's going to be a great series. And the goaltending is great.
Well, it's scary to think of the injuries that Carolina has, like the guys they don't have.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's why, depth is such a important thing and big thing in, especially a playoff run.
Yeah.
Not just your organization, but when you come down to a playoff run, you need that depth because guys, there's injuries, there's suspensions, and sometimes you get guys who, just fall out of the flow and, it's not, it just happens. But you need guys to step in and make an impact. And they've had that. I mean, wow.
So give me the professional inside expertise on what the game has become. You talked about it earlier. What's a penalty?
Yeah.
Video reviews. Last week there was a draft lottery and people were screaming about that. You got this lone Sunday game at 10 o'clock Eastern. it just seems like now a lot of this stuff is explainable if you want to listen.
Yeah.
But it almost seems like this league at times gets in its own way by creating these scenarios which frustrate people and cause them to get almost distracted. Like we are living in a golden age of skilled hockey players, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. There's more skill now than there ever has been in the game.
Right.
But, I think they're trying to do the right thing, but you can't please everybody. And the traditional hockey person probably is the people you're offending the most.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe the new fans, and I don't know enough about new fans coming in, if they're enjoying it or not. But I know you need to appeal to that, the younger generation who are stuck on computer games to get out to the games too.
See, I'm glad you went there. Are new fans an issue right now?
Well, I don't know if they're an issue, but they're going to be an issue in another 10 or 15 years when people like maybe my age or my generation are going to go, I can't go to the games anymore and watch them on TV, but I'll probably be asleep by 10 o'clock instead of 10:15.
Right. No, it's future fan development.
Yeah.
Right. I get that part. I sometimes I wonder if we're focused on the right, like who should you be focused on? Getting the new fans or the fans you have, or just being the most, I don't know, approachable sport.
Yeah, and I think being the most approachable sport is a great thing to be, because some of the other top end sports are probably not that approachable. But when you start taking that away, and guys aren't out in the public, guys aren't out signing autographs, you can't get to them after the game, that takes that away. And in his sports rank, I don't know where hockey is anymore. Obviously, you got football, basketball, baseball.
Well, certainly in this continent, I would say the NFL is number one by a mile, and then everybody's fighting below, right?
Yeah, and they do a great job. And when you watch an NFL game, you cannot go a game without seeing what they do in the community and how they portray
that is a very good point that the NFL does. Now, it's an interesting point. I've often thought that that's been the result of things like, Ray Lewis or, some of the other issues that they've had. They've reacted to it. Yeah.
But I go, it's a great marketing tool that, you show, hey, we're part of the community. And hockey is, the hockey players do a great job. Not talking about our alumni, but we're talking about the NHL.
In general, the
NHL players. But you rarely see anything on that in the promotion of it.
But I would push back on this, that I think the challenge is that we live in a media that's driven by numbers. Yeah. So what are the numbers? Where are the eyeballs? Well, we can get just as many eyeballs without having to, do pre-production and go out into the field and cover something by having two guys yell at me. Right. And it's the path of least resistance. What do people want to know today? They want to know why Kyle Dubas still has a job and if Connor McDavid is going to demand a trade. Yeah. I'm just making those up.
No,
but what they're not talking about is what either organization did in the community. What they're not talking about is what anybody else did in the community, because that's not what fans want. The fans want the controversy. Yeah. So they sell the blood. Right. That's what they sell. They sell the blood. But I miss the storytelling because I felt like I grew up on a sport that when I tuned in on Saturday, I got told the stories. Yeah. I got the intermission package on a player, and I learned about them.
And that's what I think the game misses. I don't want somebody talking to the coach in the game. As a coach during the game, what are they going to tell you? Oh, yeah, we're going to change our whole power play. We're going to shift it down. We're going to have the low guy with the puck. They're not going to tell you anything.
No.
I'd rather spend that time and as you said, learn about the players.
Right.
I don't need them focusing on their parents in the crowd. You sort of get tired of that. But
that's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. And to me, it's easy fruit. But
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Colin, if that's you and me in our age, or if that's what the new, as we talk about future fan development, what do they want, right?
Yeah.
And I go back to your line about, which is a commonly recited, is what's a penalty? Was it the same when you played? I mean, because there wasn't the reviews, there wasn't the replay, it almost felt like you weren't allowed to talk about that, or we didn't talk about that. We just talked about the story and what happened on the ice stayed on the ice. ice.
Yeah, and there was the odd time where there was probably a missed penalty, but back when
I should say that fully recognizing the Mike Bullard and the Oilers. Okay. Yeah. Well, there was that.
But you know what? There were, back in the day, I always say, I played when there was, more players on the ice than refs.
Yeah.
We only had the one referee and you had the two linesmen.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that happened, and, a lot where you knew you could get away with some, and probably, they didn't call it as tight, the hooking, the holding, probably a little bit of tripping in there, a little bit of rough stuff they probably let go, where now they're right on that. You think about, like, this, go back to the stick thing.
Mm-hmm.
You tap somebody's stick, you get a bad stick and the stick shatters, there's a penalty.
Yeah.
I'd send my worst player out with a broken stick, just hold it, hold it here, and if somebody hits it, drop it and go, just point it. And if somebody ever raises their stick, close to you, just fall down. And I don't like that. I don't like the way that, guys are falling down. It's almost like soccer, and so that part needs to be
I think
controlled.
part of that's coaching.
Yeah,
I think part of that is, go out there and draw that penalty.
Yeah.
Like, we're watching the video the next day, and geez, if you snap your head back in that particular situation, they have to make a call.
Yeah.
Right?
And as I said last night, I look at Ekholm get, high stick.
Yeah.
I go, that to me, that was pretty obvious, and there's no penalty on it.
Yeah.
But as I said, they just got to be consistent with what they call, and that's been throughout the game forever.
It has been.
Be consistent, and we're good.
Yeah.
But when it changes within the game, that's when it's tough to play, because you don't know what you can and cannot do.
I just find that so much of this feels predictable now. That when we start the playoffs, the first round's the greatest rounds of hockey we've ever seen. Right? Like, it's every night, it's multiple games. You never know. And, man, it can't get any better than this. And when we get into the second round, it doesn't get any better than this. The guys are tired. It's starting to catch up to them. Mistakes are made. But then we divert always into the same conversation about officiating. Oh, it's the worst officiating in pro sports. Well, go talk to the NBA fan, right? Go talk to
any sport fan. It all depends who wins.
Always.
And people in Toronto are, they're going to complain about whatever play was missed on them. Where, if you were asking me about Toronto, I go, Toronto probably gets the benefit of a lot of calls. But, if you're a Toronto fan, you're going, oh, we get robbed. And that's the way the game goes.
That's, I mean, being in Joe Louis Arena at the height of the Detroit teams and listening to the fans complain about all the calls that the Detroit Red Wings don't get, yet I don't ever remember a game in which the Flames went in there that they didn't get put on a 5-on-3 or whatever. I mean, it's every team thinks that they're the victim, right? Yeah. Every team thinks that they're a martyr in this, and it's just, is it out of control, or is it just part and parcel with the game? I mean, because it feels like we're going to talk about this 12 months from now.
Oh yeah, I think it's part and parcel of the game. It's a fast game, it's a tough game, and then you add in the video replay, which takes more time.
Yep.
To cover, and and then you get your TV timeouts, which lengthens the game, and then what you end up seeing the same players all the time because they get enough time to rest between those things.
Yep.
So the slugs like myself wouldn't get out,
Yeah, it would be a little hard on the time tougher, on ice. Yeah.
And then you get out for and they're everybody's timing everybody, and if you're only on the ice for 3 or 4 minutes or 5-7 minutes a game, it's a tough game to play.
Yeah.
The more you play and the more flow you can get in, the easier the game is for anybody, let alone, the superstar guys, which now, and that's what everybody wants to see. Everybody wants to see the best players out there. So
sure.
When you get the TV timeouts, you get, a timeout, and then you get all these, replays of reviews and of whether it's a goal or a penalty, that gives those guys time to rest.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the cat's out of the bag. They'll never go back and take it all out. I know why they did it. They're searching for perfection. I'm not sure perfection's the right thing, right?
Yeah, and I don't know if you can ever get perfection. Even that, the goal that Riley scores.
Yeah.
It goes in, but everybody's, all over that. But that wasn't the call. It was the whistle.
The intent to blow.
The intent to blow the whistle, and you go, well, the intent, and you go, you can see that in a way. You're putting your whistle up to blow it dead, and then it goes in. Mm-hmm. That is the call. And it's the right call. It's like the suspension to Nurse. And I go, oh, is that really, but that's the rule. But if that's the rule, then enforce it all the way through the year. Don't let anybody off it. If that's
which one was that?
That was the instigator with 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it is, then call it that.
Do you remember? Do you know the history on that? You know why that rule's in?
Oh, I'm sure it's because of something the Flames.
Yep. Yeah. It was Flames in Nashville.
Yeah.
And Daryl sent a message. And yeah, it was the end of the 04 season, in the regular season. Daryl sent a message. And the next year when, we didn't play hockey. Yeah. In 2 years we came back. And then they said, okay, if you do that, coach gets fined $10,000, players get suspended, instigated in the final 5 minutes. Yeah. Do you know who the first player and coach were to, and do you know who first?
No, I don't.
Wayne Gretzky, the coach of the Arizona Coyotes, Shane Doan.
Oh, nice.
And the league rescinded both.
Yeah.
That wasn't the intent, guys. That's not what we meant. Sorry, we didn't mean that. Now, many people have been subsequently, fined and suspended and things like that, but it just seems a little silly sometimes. It seems like we have rules in the rule book, and then we invent more rules to put in the rule book.
Yeah, and to me, that's a pretty simple one. If the guy is the instigator, and there's under 5 minutes left, that's the rule. Yeah. But if you're going to let people off during the regular season, we'll say, But if the referee on the ice calls an instigator, then you got to go with it.
You know what the unintended consequence of this whole thing is? We are making it even worse for kids.
Oh.
Because every dad that watches an NHL game now berates, or mom or uncle or aunt or whoever, berates a kid who's reffing a game because they're so used to watching plays being reviewed and the whole 9 yards, and yet we're asking kids to start officiating and make instant calls on the ice, and then you get not everybody, you get one or two yahoos that make their lives miserable, or the one or two coaches that make their lives miserable because they think that everybody has access to instant replay on every call. We don't, right?
And it's a fast game. It's a tough game to ref.
Yeah.
I saw an article about that Philadelphia Little League where
New Jersey.
It was in New Jersey. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, where they say, if you're going to yell at the ump, you're going to ump. I've been a big proponent for that in minor hockey. If you're going to yell at the ref, they should go, hey, we're not going to kick you out. You're going to actually ref the next game.
So if you are thrown out of a New Jersey Little League game and thrown out of it, before you can come back, you have to umpire 3 games.
Yeah.
One of bear with me because this isn't going to make a lot of sense when it starts. One of the really cool things that the Alumni has done in the last couple of years is partner with Hockey Calgary in a spring hockey league for kids that have been part of the First Step program, right? Yeah. So kids who've never played hockey go through the First Step program, then can play in the Junior Flames program.
Yeah, right there.
There's the puck. Yeah. And to me, the best part about it is there's a pathway to participation, right? So the parents get to find out what it's like to be a hockey parent. The kids find out what a practice is like. And then and last year, I think it was high 90s in terms of, took the program and then went on to play hockey. Yeah. But it's a needed program. I would like to see the next edition of that is that the parents get taught what it means to be an official and then come out and volunteer and help you guys official your scrimmages. Yeah. Because that would be the next... That's the next part of this, right? Because there isn't an 11 or... It's amazing to me when I go to rinks, and you've seen the same thing, how coaches and parents will beat up on an 11 and 12-year-old and somehow think this is okay. Yeah. Right? But so anyway, you can bring that up at the next alumni meeting.
Yeah, thanks for
listen, I'm a giver. Yeah, that's what I do.
You're an idea guy.
I'm an idea guy. So you parents who are just learning about hockey, come down and become officials, right?
And can't skate, yeah.
No, I mean, hey, listen, nobody said it was a perfect idea. Speaking of which, since last we spoke, a lot has transpired. Let's start with the building. Because I want to say it was early on in the tenure of, at the time, the new president, Jamie McCowan, that you and Perry and Jamie joined me downstairs in the Hot Stove Lounge, and we spent an hour talking about a new building. Yeah. That was a decade ago?
Yeah, it was only a decade ago.
Was it like 10 years ago? Yeah. Where are you at? Are you cautiously optimistic? Are you...
You know what? I had this guy that I worked for who said, I'm from Missouri, show me. Because Missouri's the show me state.
Absolutely.
And that's where I'm sitting right now. I'm from Missouri, show me. And, you can there's tons of things you can talk about on both sides of the, you know, whether it's good for the city, whether, you know, they should be putting provincial money in. And I go, how much debt does our, you know, Canadian government have with 2.6 trillion or whatever? I go, you know, 300 million. That's going to help this community, you know, get this job done. I think it's a great idea. I go, if you take Calgary out of the Flames out of Calgary, you're a bigger Regina, right? Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with
no,
Regina.
not the Regina, but you know how many corporations are moving there? How many people are moving there?
No, you become a very small.
Yeah. You know, you need, you know, what people don't realize, you need things to draw companies in, to draw people in. So to me, yes, you know, does it cost the province money? Yeah, it does. You know, and I truly don't know the underlines of, you know, where all the tax money's coming from. If it's coming from people that are just going to the building, if it's coming from the events that are coming in, you know, that remains to be seen. And, you know, now with the election coming up, if, you know, if it truly is going to go through or not, I don't know. That's why I say, I'm from Missouri, show me.
I love the vision of this one. Of all the processes so far, this is probably the one that the vision has been the easiest for me to grasp because it'll tie in that whole area. You know, somebody said to me today, well, you know, the council voted unanimously for it. Yeah, they did, because now, you know, the Bell Center, which has been losing money, and the platform and the library, they'll all be part of something, right? Yeah. So that's going to not save their bacon, but it's actually going to improve that area. Yeah. So I'm all good on that, but I'm a little bit like you. I'm like, where's the salesman in this right now? Shouldn't somebody be out telling us this is a good idea? Like, it just seems like we had the announcement and then it all went quiet, and that worries me, Colin.
It does. As I said, we'll see what happens.
Okay. Have you been interviewed for the Flames general manager's job?
No, I have not.
Okay, that's our clip for today. We can confirm that Colin Patterson has not been interviewed yet.
I'd like them to hire me as coach now, and then let me go before the first game of the season and then pay me out. That would be good. That would be a good thing.
Okay. I see. I get it. I understand. All right. Yes. Do you have a horse in the race? Do you have a favorite? Do you have an idea? Do you have a concept?
You know, I mean, I think they're doing their search now.
They are, yeah.
And I think a lot of people go, let's get the search done. I think that's the thing that I'm hearing out in the public is, you know, when are they going to come out? When are they going to come out? When are they going to come out? And, you know, and I know doing a proper search is tough, but, you know,
you would have done that in your professional life,
yes,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you do that, and, you know, you go through and you go, here's people we have within our you know, company. Obviously, for the Flames, here's people we have within the Flames, and here's outside people. You know, the outside people are easy to, you know, weed down to get to a certain number, and then you bring them in, and, you know, you interview everybody. And, you know, not everybody, but you interview those finalists, you know, whether it's 3 or 4 or 5. I'm not sure what their limit is, but you should be able to narrow it down to probably 4 people and do a thorough job. And I don't know if they're doing it by committee. I don't know if it's just Don Maloney and then, you know, his recommendation. That part I don't know. I'm not privy to all that. But I think, you know, there's great options. And obviously you want what's best for the Flames. That's what you want. And you want people who believe in Calgary, who understand Calgary, because you have to find people, you have to bring people here.
Right.
And you've got to sell the city. And if, you know, that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Do you need to have a connection? You know, Brad Treliving didn't have a connection, but he also inherited some connectors. There's always seems to have been somebody that's able to bring the history forward, right?
Yeah, and you need that. You definitely need that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, of course, you know, Craig Conroy's name is out there. Sean Burke's name is out there. Ray Whitney, Mark Bergevin, Mark Hunter. There's lots of names, but, you know, they're all intriguing candidates on their own. I've said right from the get-go, I have no problem. I think they should do a search, but I think, you know, the search should be to say that Craig Conroy isn't the guy, because it sure seems like it. And I would also say Brad Pascal deserves that opportunity too, because there's 2 guys that have if you don't have that, then what's that AGM role for, right?
And to me, like any business, you've got to develop people from within.
Yeah.
And if you aren't doing that, then there's probably something deeper within your organization.
And then the coach. And then the coach. Then the coach.
Yeah,
were you surprised by that? That they moved on from Daryl?
No.
Okay.
There's just too much out there and too many things, rumors and innuendos, and the bottom line was the team didn't win.
Yep.
Didn't get in the playoffs.
Yep.
And there was plenty of chances. I wasn't surprised. I was surprised that Tree left and then that happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what confuses you a bit.
Yes.
Not often a GM leaves a job. It's usually, the person's let go of a job. And in this particular circumstance, he left the job and then the coach is let go.
Yeah. It's too bad because it's almost robbing us a little bit of the conversation about who the next coach should be because you don't know who the GM is, right?
Yeah.
And one needs to be before the other.
Yeah. And the GM definitely has to hire the coach.
Yeah.
The GM runs the team. I mean, that's the way it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, though. One of the names that I have thrown out there is somebody that you'll be familiar with. And I'm ahead of myself because there is no GM in place. Would you interview Carla McLeod, considering the work she's done with Chechia the last couple of years and how much of that has been done publicly, that people have had an insight into how she operates?
Yeah, I think there's probably room for her in the organization, whether it be the head coach position.
No, I'm just saying as as part of the coaching search.
Yeah, I think she's worthy of talking within the organization for sure.
Yeah. No,
and she's a great person, and and just knows the game too.
Yeah, this off season can't end quick enough, can it?
No, well, you just sort of you want them to just name a GM. Everybody does, right? We're all the same, but they've got to be thorough on it. But you've got the draft coming up, and I don't know enough of the internal workings of what scouts are still under contract, how that has gone, and
I think the staff's in place until June 30th, so they get you to the draft, right?
Yeah.
So you'd have to think that you're in a position at least to do that part.
Yeah, but who's gonna fight for a player that they really want if you're not going to be there,
right?
It's like the guy recruiting for university. Yeah, come to my university, and you sign on the dotted line to go to that university. He goes, well, I'm leaving.
Yep.
So I think that that plays part of it because that's a big part of the drafting process too. There's the analytic part, but there's the part where guys go, I know this kid. I've seen this kid, watched him grow up. We need to draft him. Whether be the first round or the 8th round, doesn't matter.
Well,
if you don't have that, then you're just sort of going on. Well, here's the analytics, and we've seen how the analytics have worked in let's go Arizona.
Yeah, yeah. No, but I think your point's a good one because if you're picking 16th, you know that you're going to probably be at a plateau that you're going to have exactly that conversation. Yeah. Here's 5 guys that we've identified.
Yeah.
Who's the guy? What's the position? What's the decision here? Yeah. That's true. I mean, you do need to have somebody to make that.
And then you go, hey, you know what? There's a guy that we projected as 10th who is still available at 16th. Do we want him? Or maybe it's not 16th. Maybe it's 13th or 14th. Should we trade down to get that guy? How do we do that? So, and who's going to be responsible for that?
Yeah.
So I think you need to. The sooner the better for me personally, but
right.
I know they need to go through the process.
Yeah. Have you checked out any of the Wranglers playoff games?
Yeah, went down on Friday.
Okay.
Great stuff. I mean, it's fun hockey. It's really good hockey. And anybody who hasn't been to a game, if you get the chance to, they come back, I would say go to a game.
Yeah. Up against the really nice weather, though.
Yeah. But right? It's sort of enjoyable to come out of a game or go into a game when it's nice and warm out and come back out and it's warm
and it's still light out.
Still light, yeah.
Right? Like that. There's that isn't the normal way. No, it's a good team. Like it's full of kids that could play here too, right?
And that's the great thing. You're going to see kids that are going to journey up, and they've already have played with the Flames and, hopefully get on full time with the Flames next year.
I mean, it's been a while since you were in that league or at that level. What's that like for you to see that level now?
Well, I think it's improved a lot. The Calgary didn't have an AHL team when I was down. It was the CHL, Central Hockey League, and I was pretty fortunate. We played in Colorado, so in Denver. We're the Colorado Flames. And we played in Denver. We played out of the Nichols Arena, which was, that's where the Rockies played out of until their demise. And it was great. I mean, but, the teams were a lot different back in the day. I mean, it was a much probably tougher, existence
I was gonna say it was probably a lot more survival.
Well, yeah, and especially for college guys, it was definitely.
Being tested, were you?
Yeah, being tested, yes.
Yeah, the game, I mean, the game has changed. I mean, you look at the kind of the way that fighting is evolving out. We were just kind of talking about, kind of the nuances of how you call the game. I mean, nothing bigger to me than the fact that, you're from an era that there was a sign on the door that said, gambling is forbidden, signed by the commissioner of the National Hockey League, right? Yeah. And now
you get players promoting it.
Yeah.
And I go, let's start with the Edmonton one. You've got McDavid and Gretzky. And I think former players can do whatever they want. They do whatever they want. Current players, I go, that it's just a bad vibe for me, and maybe that's because of what you heard in the past about all the different other sports, and you hope it doesn't happen in hockey, where guys are betting on their own teams. And I mean, I don't know how you patrol that now, but when I look at Gretzky and McDavid doing those commercials, I think they're pretty funny. I enjoy them, because I think they have a good chemistry there. But I don't think McDavid should be doing them. On the other one, you've got Matthews in Toronto doing it, and I go, he's doing a gambling one second, and then the next commercial is him with a banking commercial telling you to save your money. And I'm like, what, do you save your money to gamble it away, or do you gamble it to get money to put in the bank? I don't know.
Right.
And that you get that mixed messages, but I truly don't, I'm not a big believer in guys representing gambling while they're playing, because you look at both of them just lost. So
yeah. Well, it's not without its challenges. I mean, I think it's probably, I don't know if safe is the right word, because I think we could have a whole other conversation. It's probably not fraught with the egalities that's not even a word, but we were brought up with it being a vice.
Yeah. It
was a vice, and you don't do it, and it's no call for it. And, this is the whole Pete Rose scandal. Yeah. Pete Rose is not a scandal at all if he's playing today. And I'm not sure where I fit on that, but I do know it has been a absolute financial boon to professional sports around the world.
Oh,
right. It's come in and saved, you know what I mean?
It's driving sports.
It is driving. Yeah. And I'm not sure that's healthy either. No, right.
I remember in junior B hockey, we played against this team, St. Mike's, and they always had a big crowd. And they always had a big 50-50. So the boys, we're playing them. We go, why don't we all pool our money and we'll buy these 50-50 tickets? So we had this one guy, Dicker, John Dixon, goes, okay, I'll go buy them. And so he buys them. And so we're getting shellacked like 8-1, and they announce a 50-50 draw, right? So we're on the bench. And
checking the 50-50?
He's checking the 50. He's got them in his gloves, right? So he pulls it out. He goes, yeah. So our whole bench is like, yeah. And then he goes, oh no, our group tickets are in my other glove. Those were mine.
Oh, yeah. I got you. So they didn't have you got to pick it up in the next 10 minutes sort of thing who went and collected it?
He went to the penalty box, gave the guy, because the penalty box is right beside the bench. He's right there, and, guy goes, okay.
So you guys won the 50-50?
He won the 50-50. Yeah.
So that didn't resonate with you at all? Like that it was the like, wrong...
we were always questioning him. He did buy me a large grape soda.
Well, that was
if
nice
that's any benefit.
How much did he win by the way?
I think he won like $300.
During a game?
Yeah.
Playing the 50-50?
Yeah. That was great.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you guys didn't get sanctioned by the league or anything like
I
that?
thought we were. I don't know if anything happened after that with the league saying, well, the players can't buy them or whatever. But, even that you felt funny about. But it was even funnier because we were getting shellacked and we I'll jump up on the bench.
You know, and like I'm, you know, the Nation Network has gambling partners, and you know, Sportsnet and CBC all have. The NHL has gambling partners. I am fascinated by what we've seen happen in the UK, that they've self-regulated, that they've taken the advertising down, that, you know, it's a vice. Again, it comes back to, you know, and vices are vices because they can cause problems. And you know, the one thing you've seen here is they do get you over the, you know, if you need help, that sort of thing. But it's a fascinating, I can't believe it's happened so quickly. It's 5 years since the law was changed in the United States.
Wow.
The anniversary was last week. 5 years since it became legal for sports gambling, and then the mobile and the technology and everything. And the world changes at a rapid pace, does it not?
It does.
You know, sometimes for the good,
yep.
Sometimes not for the bad. Okay, so we've got, well, I guess we got 5 teams left.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite now?
I don't have a favorite. You know, any team that could win from here on in, I'm happy with. I think, you know, when you look at Florida, you know, I think they're on quite a roll. Mm-hmm. You know, for what you expected, real underdog. I mean, Seattle, the same thing. Mm-hmm. You know, you could say Vegas was, you know, a bit of an underdog, but that would probably after the first 3 games you might have said that.
Yeah.
You know, in, you know, traditional looking at the standings, they were the favorite. So, you know, if Seattle would be it would be unbelievable if they won, or Vegas won. I mean, as we talked about those expansion teams within the last 6 years, that's pretty impressive.
My head tells me it's Florida right now, considering the caliber of teams that they have defeated. Yeah. Vegas, Jack Eichel is now beginning to play like the second best player in that draft, right?
And it was impressive to watch him last night, actually. And it's the first time I've really seen him back check. Yeah. You know, and with a purpose. Yep. You know, and I saw that. And then after the game, they interviewed him, and he was really good. He was, you know, he was all about team. Yeah. You know, which, you know, I don't get to see him play a lot, but the times I've seen him, it's been more individual. So, you know, him buying into that team game and being a big part of it and playing like he did, that bodes well for Vegas.
Yeah. And 3 of those districts, if I have this correctly, no taxes. Huh. Yeah. Right? Florida, Texas, and Nevada. Yeah. So you've got, you know, as a player, a little bit of your load is lightened. Like, you don't have to worry about so much. Oh. Right? You know, coming to the rink's just a little bit easier than it is in other places. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I don't know.
You know, and I go, they're selling features for every place. And, you know, the fact that, you know, 2 of those places have, you know, are tax-free, or, you know, the 3 of them, as you said. You know, I look at Vegas and I go, you know, expansion team. You know, 6 years ago, I go, but they, as you talked about, they've been in the final 4 times, but they've done a good job of, you know, building it from the start. As I said, they got away and were chasing shiny objects, but sort of got back to it again. Yeah. Which is smart. And, you know, Dallas has always been a really good organization.
It has, yes.
You know? And, I mean, then, you know, you luck out in you know, I shouldn't say luck out, but you get a draft where I think they got, you know, Robertson, they got Ottinger, and
even this last draft, they picked up players.
Wyatt Johnson is like, he's good, and you know, Marchment and that, and you know, I love that, you know. So they've built it. I mean, Florida's one of those teams where you go, boy, it'd be great because it's gonna, you know, bolster hockey, you know, once again. And
will it?
Oh, I think that, you know, more people will get interested in it. I'm not sure about Carolina, but I think, you know, you have, you know, when you can boast that you've had, you know, in Florida, the state of Florida, you know, 4 winners, or, you know, if they do win the cup, it's 3 or 4 or 4 or 5, whatever it is.
But to me, Carolina is interesting because I think when they win, they're good. Yeah. Like they're a good market. Yeah. But if they lose, nobody's got time for that, right?
Well, that's, I mean, a lot of the. There's a bunch of markets like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you know, I mean, Carolina is really in a competitive market, you know, not only with other professional sports, but with college sports. Yep. They're huge into college sports. Yep. So, you know, you're right. I mean, when you're not playing well, but that should force you to put a better team on the ice.
The other part about the Panthers, they don't catch a break because the Heat have moved on to the conference finals in the NBA. Yeah. So, you don't get the you don't get the marketplace to yourself, right? Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting.
Okay.
So,
I don't know. I can be torn in a million different directions. I just still think Carolina are a bunch of killers. Yeah. I think they're just unrepenting. Their defense is really good. Yeah. They're getting good production from guys that were secondary guys that are now primary guys, right? Yeah. And their coach isn't bad.
Yeah, he's a good. You know what I mean? Good on them, right? Yeah.
Oh, sure.
You love that. I go every team that, as I said, every team that's still involved. There's a reason you like them, right? Yeah. There's no reason to dislike them.
No. Yeah. No. Absolutely not. All right. So the Masters Golf Tournament for the Alumni is next Thursday, a week Thursday. Anything else you've got on the go?
Well, you can still buy bundles of firewood.
You can?
Yeah. Okay. You go up to smokinggoodwood.ca, and you can click on. There'll be a link for Breaking Free Foundation, and you can click on that and order your wood. And if you order 10 bundles or more, you get delivery for free. So if anybody needs firewood, and I know fire bans are on right now, but hopefully those will come off and the fires are controlled, and everybody's back to safety. But if you need firewood, please go on there. Smokinggoodwood.ca.
That is awesome. Yeah. Thanks, dude. This was fun.
Thanks. No, that was
Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
All right, buddy. We'll get you back soon.
Okay.
Colin Patterson, everybody. Flames Alumni, brought to you by Ski Cellar Snowboard, skicellarsnowboard.com. Not just skis and snowboards. No. In the fall, you're going to need to keep warm. Not right now. It's warm. But in the fall, you're going to need to keep warm. Check them out. And by the way, hockey players, check out their snow skating as well. Don't believe me? Go see them. skicellarsnowboard.com. Ryan Pike from FlamesNation will join us in a couple of minutes. A little bit more on the Flames search for a general manager as more names are showing up in the ether, as they say. Let's quickly, though, we didn't get a chance off the top. Let's do this, and we'll get to Ryan in a second. Last night, mentioned Adin Hill and the Vegas Knights. I thought a game in which Edmonton was going to absolutely roll them. I didn't think Edmonton would necessarily win the series being down 2 games and having to win 2 games, but I thought they'd hold serve at home. And it started that way. But the Golden Knights looked professional, were efficient. Marchessault had quite the game, the natural hat trick. Jack Eichel continues to be impressive. And then you look at the Oilers, 1 goal from Connor McDavid, no points from, Leon Draisaitl. And that's not a criticism, but that shows the weakness of that organization right now. And also, we talked about the record-setting power play. Their 5-on-5 was below average. But I'm not, I guess you didn't win, so it's a failure. I'm running that team back. I'm not blowing it up. And I know Edmonton, Calgary, Toronto, all these Canadian teams remind me of me golfing, being in the tee box and my feet are moving a million miles an hour. And finally I'll settle and I swing and I slice it and I go, what the hell? Because we've got active feet. Just calm down. Those are still the 2 best players in the world in their prime. I'm running that team back. The other series that is continuing tonight, we mentioned Seattle and Dallas. This one back in Dallas. The Kraken continue to defy the odds, I suppose, if that's how you want to say it. This is not a goaltender series. It has 2 goaltenders that have been at times the difference makers, but both have struggled. I'm just going to, the numbers I think in this postseason really defer to the road team. But it's hard for me to spit out Kraken Golden Knights conference final in such a short period of time. So there you go. That's a look at what's going on. We go back, courtesy of Ski Cellar Snowboard, skicellarsnowboard.com, 76 years in Calgary, 3 locations. McLeod Trail by Chinook Center, 17th Avenue, just off of 14th and Bow Ridge Road Northwest. And we invite in our regular Monday contributor. He is the managing editor of FlamesNation. He is Ryan Pike, and he is, you fill in the blank here. You are blank about no Canadian teams left in the playoffs.
I mean, as much as you hate to say you're disappointed about Edmonton getting booted out. It's a bit disappointing that we are going to have what? It's been since 93 since we've had a team even anywhere in contention. So,
yes.
I mean, the Leafs are a punchline at this point. My father, who's in his 70s now, was 15 the last time they made it to the final, let alone won.
Yep.
And the Oilers are, they find ways to lose. Unfortunately, they're a team that, with the high end talent they have available to them, they are very, very good, or should have the potential to be very, very good. But as the old saying goes, the devil's in the details. Their goaltending, which I think folks looked at on paper and went, that could be a problem, continue to be an issue. And their blue line group, even though they got Matthias Ekholm, who is exceptionally good, just didn't have what it took, when it counted. And, that team in Vegas, say what you will. I mean, I don't love a lot of the things they do.
And the reason they do them?
And the reason, well, I think the reason they do them is the way they can get away with it. Because if you have it straightforward from ownership on down that, damn the torpedoes, we're going to burn the boats and try to win a Stanley Cup. And then if we fail next year, we're just going to try to reset, ship out bodies we need to ship out. I mean, I don't think they've won any fans with their treatment of guys like Marc-Andre Fleury, or having to sell off Match Pacioretty for nothing. Like, they had to give up a good player in Dylan Collin to get him to take Pacioretty, but they had the cap space to then go do other stuff. So, and when you have that kind of group and you have the ownership saying, screw it, we're going to spend $100 million on salary if it means we're in the dance. And, I'll give Bill Foley credit. I mean, he put money where his mouth is with the building. He put money where his mouth is with the team, and he's given Kelly McCrimmon and that group the wherewithal to do what they need to do to get there.
Yeah, but there's a price to be paid for that, right? Which has been multiple coaches and a GM, and that's fine. To your point, I want to go back to the Canadian comment though. Like this is not new, and I'm alone on this, but I listen to, you spend today listening to a lot of different stations and a lot of different voices and everything, and there seems to be this hue and cry about no Canadian teams. No, this is a club league. This is a club league. You support a club team, for lack of a better term, right? You support a club team. I don't get that sense of, well, if the National League Baseball, if the Dodgers don't make it, I want the Giants to win. No, that's not how this works, right? Like, the Yankees don't make it, let's go Bo Sox.
We have an entire country of American baseball fans that just go, good, we kept it out of Canada for another year.
Good. Those lousy Jays didn't win. That's all that matters. I don't know. I just find it lazy. I have no interest. No, I don't have more or less interest because of who the teams are today than they were yesterday. But I fully understand. I am the minority. I am swimming against the stream. I get that. But I find it a little silly. Again, I'll still watch. Doesn't matter to me. But there's a lot of people turning out now because there won't be a Canadian team in there, right?
I think to a certain extent also because, let's be honest, there's people who aren't basketball fans that when LeBron James was chasing, who would tune into the playoffs because LeBron James, the best player in the world, was chasing. And holy cow, wouldn't it be amazing? Like there's people who weren't Colorado Avalanche fans who tuned in to watch Ray Bourque go in his run. So I think
if you're talking about McDavid, yes. I do agree with that point of view. Would there be people that would want to watch McDavid chase? Is that the point you're making?
Yeah. And maybe to a lesser extent, Austin Matthews.
Yeah.
But
sure.
I think that's the challenge because, the thing that, it's easy to have a narrative drive to watch your own home club team chase a championship. But when there's like a bigger story that you can get swept up in, that brings in a lot of extra fans. And I think that, the fact that, the Edmonton Oilers had 3 100-point players, including 2 of the best players playing the game on the planet right now. And they are out and spectating for the last 2 rounds. And on a certain level, there's a lot of folks sort of navel gazing and going, yeah, saw that coming. And I think a lot of folks saw it coming, but it's still disappointing to a certain extent because I think, big players playing in big moments makes for cool stuff for the sport. And I think we're going to have fewer cool moments for the sport because those guys couldn't get through.
Carolina and Seattle may be the greatest Stanley Cup final in the history of Stanley Cup finals, but it won't resonate, right? Not in that same way. And I get it.
I think you're going to have like two really great crowds if that happens.
Yes.
Sure. The Carolina fans are insane in the best way possible. But I know what you mean. Like, in terms
but it's the outdoor game conversation, right? Like, oh, I'm tired of outdoor games. Yeah, but it's not for you. It's for the crowd, right? In that regard, Seattle, Carolina, those crowds would be incredible. But I don't like. Well, all right. But I see your point about McDavid, and I agree. He's in that LeBron conversation. You want to watch the superstars chase. Right, from that standpoint. Care to opine on what happens in either of those markets? I mean, I'm running Edmonton back. I don't, I know it's a failure, but
if I'm the Oilers, I think the challenge is they're so top heavy, and we've had this conversation about the Oilers for forever. But they're going to be. I was talking to some folks I know in the market just about how the team's looking, and they gave Stuart Skinner a raise, and I think Stuart Skinner very much deserved that raise. But they have two goaltenders making a combined about, I think, just shy of $8 million. Who Jack Campbell they showed very little confidence in whatsoever in the playoffs, and Stuart Skinner's still very green. And if you're saying, does that feel like the goaltending duo for a Stanley Cup champion? I have my concerns. Mm-hmm. Their blue line, I mean, I really like Darnell Nurse, but I think leaning on him as much as they do, there's some challenges. So you'd love to add one more sort of top four blue liner to sort of spread things out. The only question is, how the hell did you pay for it? Because, they're so hard against the cap. And I mean, yeah, I'm sure there's 31 markets just, crying their eyes out going, oh, poor Edmonton. They're spending that kind of money on a Connor McDavid. Oh, geez. I'm sure there's also 31 markets that be lining up to pay a Connor McDavid what he's getting paid if that meant that they had him.
Well, I look at it, if the same financial repercussions were in the league in the 90s, Pittsburgh would have been going through it with Malkin. Yeah. With Jagr and Lemieux, right?
But like, even with them, they were still a team that had to operate within a budget. So I think for a lot of teams, the cap sort of cemented something that was already in place in a lot of sort of small and mid-sized markets. Really, all it did was prevent, Toronto and New York and a few other markets from spending like drunken sailors.
But see, I would argue a little, and you're going to find that hard to believe. I'm going to argue with you, Ryan. I would argue, though, that once everything became public, then there was the pressure to spend that money, right? Oh, you can pay him this much? You should pay him this much, right? And I think back then there was still that we didn't know what we didn't know, right?
Yep. Like that and the cap floor. I mean, the cap floor. That's right. The cap floor. Worst thing that happened to a lot of markets, because then you have, you create the necessity for folks like Arizona to do weird stuff to not spend money but get
they prefer
get to the cap
term
floor.
Creative. Okay, so I want everybody who's watching this, you cannot, under no circumstance, refer to the next thing as news, a rumor, suggestion, or nothing. You can't. You're not allowed. What would they get if they moved Draisaitl? Could they reset? Could they bring back enough with one player, right? Is there a landing spot in the league in which they could go A, B, C, and D, and you get him? Because you asked the question. That's the question, right?
I don't think from one place. Because if I'm Ken Holland, for a guy that's like, the only crime that Leon Draisaitl ever pulled was being not quite as good as Connor McDavid.
Barely.
So you'd be realistically asking for what? The picks are the equivalent of what? 3, 4, 5 first round picks. Like, I'd want a first this year, a first next year, your first the year after that, your best player, your best prospect, your best. Like, I'd want an arm and a leg, and then whatever thing you're still hopping up on, I want that too, because he's, is he an amazing defensive player? No, but like, he's so good on the power play. He's so good 5-on-5. He's, he's dynamite in 2 out of 3 zones. And in the defensive zone, he's merely good.
Yeah.
So,
you can't, I think you have the perfect answer. You can't, because you can't do it with one team. You'd need shared resources from a bunch of teams for that talent. And to your point, his only mistake is he's slightly less than what Connor McDavid is. And you might have made a case this year he was even better in the playoffs.
And for the contract he's on, like, relative to McDavid, I think he's a bargain. And that's again, if you put a gun to my head tomorrow and said, you got to trade him, I'd be asking for the moon, because you can fit him into a cap structure much more easily than you can McDavid.
Sure you can. So then take me to Toronto, because the early word is Dubas isn't going anywhere. Matthews, they'd like to re-sign. It's kind of like the longest song in the history of music, because we heard about it in the last summer when they got Matt Murray. Well, you guys don't know. Dubas had him in junior. Like, this is part of this is three-dimensional chess. Well, here we are, and it didn't work, and now what do you do?
I don't know, because they sort of had the same problem that the Oilers did, where, was their goaltending the reason they lost? No, but it wasn't the reason they lasted
won
much longer. Yeah. Their blue line group, even, I'll say this might be the first spring, fall, winter, whatever, the first season where Mark Giordano looks like his age. He wasn't horrible, but he wasn't exceptionally good for his age. He was fine.
Yep.
And that's a group that, especially with the injuries they had, with all the pieces that were sort of underperforming, they needed Mark Giordano to be better than fine. And they're another team that they are probably in worse cap situation than the Oilers are. Oof. And what do you do? Because you have all those big pieces hitting into, the last or second last parts of their contracts, and then you got to figure out, okay, what does this team look like? My guess is the Maple Leafs next year have a higher chance of looking significantly different than the Oilers do, because I think if you're the Oilers, you kind of have a good sense of what you need to address. For the Leafs, I mean, they've tried a bunch of different combination of guys. They've changed up their blue line. They changed up their goaltending. Like, what do they have left to try to change to get a different result here?
Yeah. Well, and to me, the one thing both of those teams have in common is multiple really good players on fairly big contracts, right? So their hands are. So what's what's the lesson here? Only get one really good player and a bunch of okay ones. I don't know what they do either, Ryan. I think the easy one is to get rid of Nylander, and I'm sure you'll find people who would take him. But is that going to make you better? Right.
Depends how you spend the money.
Right. And but you almost need to spend the money internally, don't you?
Kind of, because if you're asking me, hey, do you want to keep Matthews and Mark, especially us Matthews? I mean, say what you will about the guy, he can just score goals. Like, he scores goals the way people breathe oxygen, and that's probably the number one commodity in the National Hockey League right now. So you want to do what you can to keep him there for as long as possible, but then you also got to surround him with the right supporting cast. And they've had a very good supporting cast in Toronto for a while, but just they haven't been able to get over that last little hump. I mean, this is a market that they just won their first playoff round since 2004, and then it was followed by a gut punch of a second round. And they're like Charlie Brown in the football, and you almost feel bad for them, because there's few markets. I mean, I'll say Edmonton's up there with them, but there's few markets that love their team the way Leafs fans love the Leafs. I mean, if you're wondering, just ask them; they'll tell you. But I feel kind of bad for those fans sometimes, because they've been so good. It kind of reminds me of think of the Flames in the 80s, or that one, like the post Stanley Cup season, folks. The Flames were a very good team in 89-90, and then they just completely fell flat in the playoffs, and then they just couldn't get anything going in the playoffs for 15 years.
Right. No, it's an unforgiving league, and you've got these two stories, and it's a good point you raise, because I think I don't have no affinity for a Canadian team. That's what we got the Olympics for, the World Championships. But the McDavid story is a good one. I think you're right. I think a lot of people would have tuned in to watch the superstar, and to a lesser extent, Matthews as well. Having said that, 5 teams left. How do you think it breaks in Dallas tonight?
It's a coin toss to me. I'm leaning Dallas, because they've been there before. They sort of have a veteran group who's sort of been through this kind of stuff before. And they went through that heartbreak against Calgary last year. As much as we want to say it was a watershed moment for the Flames franchise, that was a gut punch for Dallas. I mean, they've been around it for so long. They've been that group that they put together is so close to being great. And I think they found that gear during this postseason. And so I'm leaning Dallas, but I wouldn't be dissatisfied with either outcome, because I think Seattle's been one of the best unsung stories of the league this year, where they were just not very good last year for a lot of different reasons. And then just their fortune swung the other way this year. They've been much healthier. They didn't have, they were one of the teams that had to deal with COVID more so than a lot of teams last year. And so they weren't able to really run their full group out for the most of the season. And this year it's just gelled for them. And, they're an easy team to root for. And honestly, that's just gonna be a hell of a game no matter who wins.
I think that the importance of Seattle in the grand scheme of things is, again, a team that was very beat. Yes, they had a good regular season, but using the measuring stick of the Calgary Flames, the Flames beat them a couple times, and they weren't world beater, but they came together and it all worked at the right time. And that whole idea of just get to the playoffs. And the other part that I'm curious, two-parter for you, Adin Hill kind of buggers up a lot of theories, doesn't he? Because you got to have a really good goaltender. You got to, yeah, I guess, but dude's made 38 saves last night, and he's an afterthought.
Yeah. Right? I mean, he's good enough. I think
Calgary kid, by the way.
Yeah. I'll say this. There's a mindset towards cap management early in the cap era that was just saying, you don't need to have great goaltending. You just need to have good enough. Like if the Flames had league average goaltending this year, they'd be in the playoffs by very comfortably. Yeah. But they had league worst goaltending. Right. So you don't need to have great goaltending, because great goaltending can be expensive. You just need to have not bad goaltending. And the Vegas got thoroughly not bad goaltending for that the playoffs, and they rolled out 5 different guys between the pipes this year. And they at one point, Freddie Brathwaite, the Vegas the Henderson Silver Knight goaltending coach, had to dress in Henderson as their backup because they ran out of
goalies in the system,
because they kept pulling guys up to the American, from the American League to the NHL. So like that's a group that's had to go through the ringer, but I think they've developed a comfort with whoever the hell is back there with the pads on. And as a result, they don't really seem to play any differently with Jonathan Quick, with Jiri Patera, with whoever. And now that they have Adin Hill back there, they just seem like they're like, they play big games. They played tight, tough games with him in net in the regular season, and he produced, and they went, okay, we're fine with that. So they don't need to worry about that. They just focus on other things. And I think that level of flexibility with any number of good enough goaltenders has given them a lot of confidence.
Any expectation that they'll get healthier in that position?
Who knows? Who knows? Okay. But it's honestly, if they do get healthier, I mean, then you got some choices, and I'm sure having different options to throw at Seattle or Dallas in the third round, that's a nice little wrinkle to have.
Whether the rest of the hockey world wants to acknowledge it or not, there's a nice little rivalry between Florida and Carolina. I don't mind this Eastern Conference, right?
The old Southeast Division, eh?
Yeah, I don't mind this. Coaches are involved, and and there's a little history here. But I keep going back to Carolina are killers. They are. Like, they may lose this series, but they're killers. Like, they're just cold-blooded. This one, I don't even know where to go on it. I want Tkachuk to win, I guess. I don't know.
I just want 7 games, because I think all 7 games are going to be entertaining. I mean, it's the type of game. It's the type of series where you look at it on paper, you go, well, the games won't be boring. Tkachuk will fall on a goalie at least twice per game, and you're going to have crowds in either building. They're just loud and rowdy, and you're going to have a war of words from the coaches. Like Rod Brindamore is one of my favorite interviews in the league, because he gets it. Like he got it when he was a player, and he gets it now. Paul Maurice is just sneaky smart. Like. He's always smart, but he finds a way to say smart things in a way that dumbs them down for you so you can process them well. And like he might be one of the better coaches of the league in terms of being able to distill really complex stuff into really simple sound bites. And it's 2 really fun markets. I mean, especially Carolina. I mean, Carolina was sort of, people used to snicker about them. Like, they're doing the clapping thing. That's funny. But, they've developed under Tom Dundon and that leadership group such a really unique team culture that it's kind of neat just to be able to sort of see a bit more of a shine put on them. Because like, if you're someone and you're trying to reboot a team, we always talk about there's teams to try to emulate. You don't want to emulate everything from other teams, but it's a copycat league. And you figure out how Vegas has been so consistently successful with what they are trying to do. And you also figure out in terms of just helping people to rally around a team and a community, Rally is doing it right. And I think just the ability to turn something that people didn't really care or think that much about outside of a really loyal hardcore fan base and expand it to the point where now it's one of the hottest tickets in the league. Like, people need to copy what the Hurricanes are doing because it's fun.
No, I agree with you. And Dundon was immediately ostracized because he wasn't doing things the way that everybody else does things.
I was at the Chicago draft in 2017 right after he bought the team.
Yep.
And there was, you've been to the draft. For folks who haven't been to the draft, there's 30 odd tables of white dudes in suits crowded around in suits. It looks like you're seeing versions of 300 versions of the same guy.
Yep.
And then there's billionaire Tom Dundon in a tracksuit, just wandering around. Like, he looks like he just came from the gym, but he doesn't care. Like, he's enjoying himself. He's having fun. Right. And that table was cracking jokes. They were hooting and hollering, like they were having a grand old time. And since he came in, I think he's just managed to change the temperature in that market in a way that seems to have allowed people just to focus on what they want to do.
A little closer to home, the playoffs continue for the Wranglers tonight in Coachella Valley. That series tied at a game apiece. Calgary coming back on Friday to split the series. But because of the wacky, crazy schedule, the next 3 games are in Coachella Valley. So a little bit of a upward climb, I would say, for Mitch Love's team, which is hard to say about a club that finishes first overall.
And I don't know, because they were the best road team in the American Hockey League last year.
Yeah, I know, but Coachella's, again, they're pretty good too, right?
If there's one group of folks cheering for the Seattle Kraken tonight, it's probably Mitch Love and his coaching staff, because Ty Cartier would stay up with the Kraken. Yeah. At the very least, he's missing game 3. And that could be the difference. An extra day or two without Ty Cartier could make the difference. So they're good. I was in attendance as a fan for game 2.
Mm-hmm.
God, Seattle's fast. But I think, game 1 was the Wranglers getting super scrambly, and it was very much a rope-a-dope game, which, all due respect to the teams involved, does not play into the strengths of the Wranglers very much. Yep. But they played a much more tight checking structured game. They slowed things down. They made Coachella Valley really work for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the template. And, if the Wranglers can go in and, do their thing, play a good road game, they basically play game 2 at home like a road team. And I think that's their ability to change their approach or impose an approach on another team. That's one of the things they've been so good at this year. And I think that's one of the reasons why, they're playing so late, because they can just grind it out and say, nah, this is the type of game you're playing with us tonight. So we'll see. It's I think, I would say whoever wins game 2 or game 3 rather would be the team that probably wins the series. But it still, to me, feels like a game that probably goes all 5 games because of how little there is a margin between the two teams.
Minor league hockey's come a long way when you're in the playoffs and you're going to spend a week in Palm Springs, right?
Yeah, I'm sure all the pro scouts.
It's not Kalamazoo.
It's not Toledo.
Yeah, it's not Toledo. Some of those minor hotspots. To the big club we go. More and more names. I wouldn't say more and more, but more names coming out in the search for general managers, or for a general manager. Sorry, they only need one. Thoughts on some of the names that have been appearing here over the weekend?
Oh, there's a lot of them. I've heard that the list is upwards of 30 guys or 30 names, depending on how you want to define the list.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I'm still partial to the internal options, but I think some of the external options are very interesting. I wrote something for FlamesNation.ca for today on Eric Tulsky from the Carolina Hurricanes. If you like Chris Snow, you'll love Eric Tulsky, because Eric Tulsky's a blogger. Eric Tulsky's a blogger who came up as a Flyers fan through the local blogs, and he actually worked for NHL Numbers in the Nation Network for a little bit.
Yep.
And he he just became a guy that got hired. He's one of the many of our alumni who got hired into organizations. And, he's someone that can just translate numbers at a high level into tactics. There's a few people like that. Alexander Mandrick over in Seattle is another one of those people. Sam Ventura in Buffalo is another one of those. So if you're someone going, oh, you know what they need to do? They need to double down on analytics. There's 3 or 4 really smart people who could really build on what Chris Snow's been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an appealing proposition. If you're looking for people who've worked extensively in hockey ops and have run teams, I mean, Brandon Pridham of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Flames, according to Frank Seravalli of Daily Faceoff, have or are intending to request permission to speak with him. He's someone you should speak with because he's very smart. He runs their salary cap, and he's their CBA expert. There's a few other guys like that. So the thing that's fascinating to me is, I don't think you're going to find one person that's done everything, because outside of, let's say the obvious, outside of the people who worked in Arizona who had to do everything because they didn't have a lot of resources, looking at you, Brad Treliving, it's really difficult with the way hockey or organizations are set up to become versed in everything. So You're really basically finding subject matter experts in one thing or the other. Case in point, in Calgary, Brad Pascal has run their development apparatus for several years. He's been very good at it. The team has been Final Four in the league last year, and in the second round or third round this year. So they've done a good job with that. I don't think that can be disputed. But if you also look at some of the other things they've been doing, I mean, Craig Conroy sort of had his fingers in a bit of everything in terms of contract negotiations, scouting college, scouting Europe, scouting amateur. He's very much involved in sort of helping out the group with their amateur scouting and building the list to the point where I don't think he's nominally not. I don't think he's in charge of any one area, but he's sort of trusted enough to sort of dabble in everything and sort of be asked his opinion on a lot of different things. But that's again, that's the kind of fun thing, because you're gonna who they choose and what subject matter expertise that individual has will tell you a lot about what the Flames feel they value as they move forward. And I think we're probably about a week or so away from getting some clarity on that, simply because we're coming up a week or so away from scouting meetings, and they said they wanted to have someone in place. So I don't know, man.
We'll see. I think part of that conversation needs to be the staff you'll hire too, right? Because to your point, nobody is an expert in everything. So, do you come to the table going, yeah, I'm, this is not a strength for me. That's why I would be looking to bring in X, right?
Yeah. And I think that's, I think a lot of these conversations with all these smart people is, what is this? Like, if I'm interviewing Eric Tulski, even if I'm thinking in the back of my mind, if I offered Eric Tulski a job, he'll go to his owner and say, here's what they're offering me. And they might just make him GM there. Like, because John Waddell is GM and president, and a lot of the day-to-day is run by Eric Tulski. Yeah. So he might not be an option, but you still want to talk to him, because, if you go, so how do you guys run things in Carolina? Like, what's your structure like? What works with that structure? What don't you like about that structure? Because if you're the Flames, like, the Flames have had the same basic structure for a decade. Yeah. And it's worked for what they've wanted to do. But if you're thinking, well, you might change a little bit of what they want to be doing, or, even something that's just as simple as how's communication work internally. Like, there's a lot of different things they can tweak. And I'd want to talk to everyone I can just about how things are organized, who does what and why, and how does it all come together. Because, if nothing else, then, if you hire somebody, like, let's say you hire Craig Conroy, say, Craig, here's, while we were talking to these other guys before we hired you, there's 5 different setups for how a hockey ops organization can be set up that we think we're kind of curious about. And maybe he'd have opinions on it. Maybe he likes it the way it is. Maybe he wants to change it up. But I think that would really inform a lot of different things. So it's going to be fascinating, because I would be shocked if they hire just one person. I think they're obviously hiring a GM. They're obviously hiring a coach. But in terms of hockey ops, I mean, you're hiring a GM, and then, you're probably, if you hire a Craig Conroy, you got to replace Craig Conroy. If you hire Brad Pascal, you got to replace Brad Pascal. That's right. Things like that. So I think what they do, and then the ripple effects from that, are going to be very instructive in terms of seeing what they value. Yeah, I know. I wholeheartedly agree with that. Anything in terms of, here we are almost nearing the midway point of this provincial election. The arena was announced prior to it, but it has a connection. Are we hearing anything arena related in the last week or so? No, The next meeting of the committee won't be until the Monday after the election. So they'll have something to talk about one way or the other, because, if one party gets in, they've said, oh, we're definitely going to do this. So there's no reason to announce something, run on it, and then after you win, go, wait, never mind. So, I mean, you could always do that. If you get a majority government, you can do the hell you want.
I really wish you wouldn't have said that out loud. I hate to see that happen.
Yeah, it'd be funny, but funny in like a terrible way.
That's exactly it.
But on the other hand, I mean, I've been talking to some folks about this. I'll say this: if you're the NDP, and I don't care how people vote, people, I'm very apolitical. I have my opinions, but my opinions aren't everyone else's. I'd be fascinated, your opinion, Rob, on why do you think the NDP hasn't gone out on a limb saying, yeah, we're definitely doing this, or no, we're not doing this? Because I've seen Rachel Notley's been very tactical in terms of saying, well, we need to see more details, which, yeah, I think getting the full swath of details is smart, but not saying definitely no, not saying definitely yes. So there's plenty of elections. We saw this in the municipal election both times. There was pro-arena candidates and anti-arena candidates, and it made the discourse very easy, because the sales pitch would be, oh, if you want the Flames to have an arena, you need to vote for so and so. We don't have that here, and almost intentionally, it's been almost intentionally.
No, I think it's fully intentional. I think it's a tactic of letting her. Well, I guess they're both hers in that case, the two leaders, but letting Danielle Smith own it as a political piece. And I also think, just my view of provincial politics, the NDP are viewed as a non-business friendly party. So, they don't want to give any freebies to the other side, right?
Yeah.
If they establish a position, then the other side gets a chance to, take that position and twist it or whatever. They're just leaving it hang out there. And that's part of, to your point, which is really smart. Like, nobody's talking about this. Even the UCP isn't talking. Like, I've complained loudly, like, get out there, sell this thing. But it is just laid there and nobody's touching it. And I don't think the NDP want to give the other side any kind of political football that they can run with or spike. And we'll see what happens if they get in. And if they don't, then, they may go back and go, geez, we shoulda. It's just nobody's touching it.
Yeah, and the part of the justification from the UCP in terms of why the $300 million was allocated was, the city's been asking for downtown revitalization money for a bunch of different things, and if we can debate economic development all we want, but if the idea is, you're going to throw some money at the East Village area and the Rivers District, and you'll attract stuff from other places. So it's not like you're going to create extra. It's not like the city of Calgary suddenly going to have citizens with a bunch of extra disposable income. But instead of spending their money in the far-flung outskirts, they'll come downtown. So that's, in terms of economic development, that's the kind of economic development it'll attract. And in terms of the downtown strategy, that's the whole point of the downtown strategy, getting people downtown from elsewhere.
Absolutely.
And so the city's thought process was, well, $100 million a year from the province to sink into this, that, the other thing. Great. That's, it's something useful.
Yep.
What I would really love is some clarity in terms of, regardless of who's in power, if this is what the city feels like, okay, this is what we're asking Santa for Christmas, regardless of who Santa is, we're going to ask him for $100 million to throw in this district for infrastructure. Okay. As long as everyone involved is fine with this being the pennies from heaven they get, if everyone's is okay with it, I mean, I have my opinions on how they should spend the money, but if the government, if both levels of government are okay with wearing this, in terms of this is what the city asked for, and this is what the province delivered, I don't think it necessarily matters who's in government, as long as they figure out everyone's comfortable with the transaction. I mean,
well, and to your point, the one thing that Danielle Smith did, if Rachel Notley gets in, the one thing she did is provide a little cover. And by that, I mean, we're not paying for the building, right? No. This money, to your point, this is infrastructure money. This is going to roads, and and meanwhile we've got the Bell Center, the platform, the library, all of these things which will benefit, and we know that there's some cost issues there, and and some expenses there that aren't being met all the time, but now they're part of this, so everybody wins in this case, right? So that's
especially with the idea that anyone who's been to the Saddle Dome over the last, not even few years, but the last 5-10 years, it's a goddamn nightmare to get in and out of there. And it's
not going to get any better anytime soon.
And it's nobody's fault, but it's like
but it's a reality. It's a reality.
If your thought process is like, I delved into this on the site. The $1.223 billion price tag is a big friggin' scary number because it's objectively a big number. Like in terms of regardless of how you cut this up, even if you ignore the building, ignore the infrastructure, just focus on the building. I think it's like an $870 million building and something like $500 million becoming. I think 59% of the their anticipated direct construction costs would be towards the building, which would make it, I think, top third in the league in terms of public money, and in terms of just dollars, the richest public expense on an NHL arena in history. So okay, it is what it is. I mean, if everyone's comfortable,
somebody was going to be that, right?
Somebody, it was going to happen somewhere. And if you're thinking, okay, fine, whatever, and if you're okay with them, with $300 million of infrastructure money, like you could argue that the infrastructure money needed to be spent because they've needed the area to have better transportation links for 10 years, 20 years. Okay. I mean, but I think it'd be beneficial if, as you had said, like you always talk about, you want someone to stump for a project or something.
Absolutely.
I would, I don't necessarily need someone to advocate for a project, but I would just want someone to own the expenditures, to say, here is why we're doing this, and here's why we think it's a good idea. And I think we've seen a lot of it for the building, where the city has gone out and said, here's the kind of development we think this will bring, and stuff really attracted. But I think the $300 million, I think, is the big piece of it, because if this is what you need to spend to make it all work, to make, like, you're spending a crap ton of money on bringing 17th in. You're spending a crap ton of money on the BMO Center and the arena and this, that, the other thing. And you're also going to be doing a lot of work in Arts Commons. You're doing a lot of work on the library and the National Music Center.
Yeah.
So if you're saying to me that all that money is kind of pointless unless you make people be able to get in and out of there properly and not have to scream and shout and plan their days around sitting in traffic for however long, great. Just come out and say that. Someone needs to say, here is why this is important to this whole plan. And I don't think we've really had that.
We don't have it. In some cases, we don't have it. And I'm not pointing fingers at anybody in particular. It's more of a theory. We have managers. We don't have leaders. The difference being, leaders tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And there's going to be some people that are going to hear some things that they need to hear but not want to hear, right? The reality of it is, it's a disaster. Transportation-wise, it's a disaster. It needs to be fixed up. Even if you were going to keep the dome for the next 30 years, you still need to do it, right? So, I agree with you. I'm hoping, like, in 2 weeks, as this thing's to bed. I guess. Well, when's the election? 2 weeks from today?
Yeah, 29th.
Yeah. So I hope this thing's to bed on, I guess, 2 weeks in a day.
See, I play my life well, because I'm traveling that day. I'm coming back from Vegas that day, so I'm voting early, and then I'm just going to the States and hiding for a long weekend. So I'll come back, and this one we put.
You are the smartest man in the world.
I mean, I'm going to lose my ass in Vegas, but at least
you don't have to. You can go down and be at the pool all day. Right?
I'll try. Okay. I'll
try. Quickly before I let you go, World Hockey Championships. I'm trying. I'm not into them.
Come on, you're not into seeing the USA just ragdoll Hungary?
I'm not. I'm really not.
I think it's a tournament that it's underrated, but it's sort of an afterthought until you hit the medal rounds, and you get, like even last year or 2 years ago when Andrew Mangiapane came in and was the story.
Yes,
he didn't come into the last 2 or 3 games of the tournament.
That's true. Yeah.
And so he came in, and Canada was, they needed some help to make the medal round, and then he came in and he dragged them kicking and screaming. And right now, I mean, we've seen some nice stories. Matt Coronado scored the power play game winner for the United States over Germany today. Okay. And Mackenzie Weegar's been dynamite. Like, he's leading the tournament in points right now through 3 games. So there's some. Is he changing your mind? Is he not changing your mind? His last couple of months here
He's not who I thought he was. He's beginning to impress me in a different way.
Since the All-Star break, he was a half a point a player a game, or half a point a game player. Yeah. And so he was on a full year, about a 40-point pace. And that's with the power play being very average to below average.
Yeah.
And so, people in my mentions, every time on social media, I post something about Mackenzie Weegar, people are like, can you bring this kind of thing to the NHL? Because that'd be really fun. And more, I mean, he's got some size, he's got some smarts to him. We always knew he was a dynamite two-way guy. He's showing more and more that sort of offensive dynamism. And more I'm thinking, oh God, put him and Oliver Shillington together. And
well, you mentioned that today, and I thought that was a really interesting idea.
That would give opposition coaches just nightmares. Because, you have a guy who's big and a guy that can skate like the wind.
Yeah.
And they complement each other really well. The knock on Shillington is always, he's just not going to be your shutdown guy. No. So don't let him be your shutdown guy. Put him with someone that can do a lot. And more, I have such a respect for Mackenzie Weegar's two-way game. And if you put him with someone with, he was playing with Rasmus Andersson, and I don't think it's a coincidence that both of them are just going off offensively. And that's post getting hit by a car, Rasmus Andersson.
After he got hit by a car.
Like, this is, I think the sky is the limit for Mackenzie Weegar. And I think the sky could also be the limit for whoever plays with him. I'm
enjoying the candor too. I have no problem with him speaking his mind. I like it.
He'll be the next mayor at this rate.
Yeah, he might. He's going to be part of that leadership group, I would think.
Yeah. And, he's always been, at least during the year we got a chance to chat with him, really open, really engaging, really honest. And, he also doesn't mind throwing in a joke every now and then. But it's not like if the team's playing like trash, he's not going to be, cracking jokes. It's when things are going okay and, they think they've turned their corners. So he's got that kind of situational social awareness that you really like to see. And I think something that, so far has really resonated with Flames fans.
Situational social awareness. That's my I want a t-shirt with that. That's my new favorite term because it's appropriate and accurate. What is going on at Flames Nation these days? You're shutting it down, right? There's nothing to talk about?
Oh, goodness, no. There's nothing going on. We're going to have GM stuff, coach stuff, draft stuff. And in the lead up to the provincial election, so basically next week, I have a metric shit ton of arena stuff. We're going to it. We're going to be chopping up the deal as it stands in a lot of different ways, a lot of little comparisons, adding some context from other places and other markets. So, we were sort of letting it sit for a little bit so we can sort of see what other details came up. And, and now we're like, okay, now it's time to empty the notebook because, it might be useless in a couple weeks or it might be very, very useful.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to it. No show next Monday, so we'll hopefully catch up to you in the middle of next week. As always, Ryan, appreciate this.
Cool. Take care.
Thanks, buddy. And just like that, he's gone. Brought to you by Ski Cellar Snowboard, skicellarsnowboard.com. Opened in 1946, 3 locations, and it's not just skis and snowboards. Warm clothes, you don't need them today, but get a deal on them now so you have them for the fall and winter next year. By the way, we are live in the Oodle Noodle studio, local, love, delicious. Since opening their first store back in 2005, Oodle Noodle has been all flavor and just the right amount of weird. 2 locations in Calgary and area, 1244 17th Avenue Southwest, 105 Main Street North in Airdrie. Pickup and delivery. Final mile for you today. Just, I guess, a heads up, first of all, Danny Austin on Wednesday, he'll be hosting. He's got Peter Marr. Friday, Craig Button and Eric Dahachek on the show. Next Monday, no show. I'll be back with you Wednesday, and Danny's got a week Friday as well. So we got a lot going on these days, but glad that Danny can sneak in. I don't know if he had a chance, but his 50 things to watch with the Flames, with the Stamps is out. It came out on Saturday, so certainly worth checking out. Cannot believe this weather. Cannot believe how Stamps Camp has started without snow. That it's quite possible that this weekend, the long weekend, is going to have gorgeous weather, albeit maybe too hot because the fire bans will be in place, and that's going to be rough on campers and things like that. Just wanted to remind everybody, just some great things going on in our city right now. So make sure you're checking them out. Again, full disclosure, I'm helping them out with the community programming, but the Calgary Surge are less than 2 weeks away from opening their home schedule in the CEBL at Winsport. That's coming up on the 27th. Great weather for the Cavalry here in the first couple of weeks. Still looking for those wins, but the weather has been incredible. Take advantage of it. And if you get a chance, check out Sandra Persina. She's calling the Wranglers games against Coachella Valley, and she's doing a super job. So lots of reasons to be optimistic, lots going on. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back on Wednesday. I won't be, but Danny and Peter Marr will be. Our outstanding producer today was Jack. He did an amazing job. Thanks to Colin Patterson. Thanks to Ryan Pike. We will talk to you very soon. Thanks, everybody.
When there's two sides to every coin, then there's a conversation you can join. But I'm an old dog and there's new tricks, and some of my opinions you just can't fix. 'Cause I'm an old man yelling at the sky. I'ma shake my fists at the clouds and cry. Get off my lawn, you snowflake, before I have a meltdown, breakdown, shakedown. 'Cause this is my hometown, so back down, sports clown. It's all just a game, and it's the last down, let down, cowtown. I said it's all just a game. I give the touchdown, the rundown, the lowdown, 'cause it's over the game. Gonna crack down and shut down the sundown. I said